Welcome to Bunny's Designs. This is a live stream for Ustream.tv with live peoples. Welcome everybody. And also recorded for YouTube for people to watch at their leisure. I've been rather naughty pre-Christmas present and bought the Johanna's Christmas, which was inspired by my daughter bought this weekend at the local garden centre, which is very, very Christmassy. And this is her theme colours for her tree. And that reminded me of my Dr. Martens hydrus when I coloured in with my hydrus in Animorphia. But I've used them a slightly different way. I used them a completely different way yesterday. It's disappeared. But I love these really rich, vivid colours, and I never used them like this before. Now, I didn't have much of a watercolour effect, but I did have a little bit. So that's not using them from dry, this was using them from wet. So that gave me the idea to colour in this Johanna Basford Christmas. So I'm just going to have a bit of a play of just how well I can colour these in and get kind of a wispy effect. So I've got a little bit of colour and the damp brush. So when I'm watercolouring, which is my way of watercolouring, I use these very dry, a damp brush, and that's teasing colour, and it will get paler and paler and paler. So you have a natural highlight. I might use a slightly bigger brush. It's good to do a test page because it's taken me about 4 years to get to master this. This is my invention of watercolouring, and it's basically for people who can't use a lot of water. They don't want the mess, they can't struggle with big sheets of watercolour paper, but you can have the watercolour effect with very little water. So this makes this very portable. Oh dear. Sorry about that. So you can have a watercolour effect, but that's using this very dry. If you're using the wet liquid ones that I've just put in, this system doesn't work. This system works here. So I'm going to do a page. I will do a page with watercolouring, which is my way of watercolouring pages. And then there's this way of just using them normally. So there's two different ways to use them. One, you use them wet as a liquid, and the other you have to wait till they dry and use them dry. Now this is tacky, so but I'm using just the tiniest amount. So again, you have a damp brush, a rigger. It only works with a rigger, and you want a drop of colour right on the end, preferably without a hair. And then the colours in here, you're teasing it through, and what's happening is it's the opposite to the wonderful markers. So we're going dark to light instead of light to dark. The chameleon markers, and they do it the opposite way. So this colour is bleeding out rather than bleeding back into the pen. But you get a lovely effect of blending without having to blend. Now if I turn this upside down and work the other way, it's easier, and you will get your highlight in the middle. And I'm using these colours neat because these are very vibrant, these Dr. Martens hydrus. They are professional watercolours, and they're very, very, very pigmented. And I just thought that this Christmas book so lends itself to some really pretty colours, which is what Christmas is all about. Now this is phthalo green, but I'll probably be mixing, if this works, and it's, you see this is a little bit too damp, so it didn't work as well. But this is my practice. I could probably do with maybe a bit bigger brush, even this one. Let's have a go with this one. And so again, I just want the tiniest amount of colour, and then you need to just keep going. You just need to keep moving the colour out, so you get a wonderful blended watercolour effect with very little effort, and there's no strain on your hands, which is the most important thing. And you just have to keep going until you get to the edge. So you've got a lovely gradient of colour. Well, this is a number 1 rigger, but they're all different. I mean, this looks quite a chunky one. Number 2 is a bit bigger. I might try number 2. The 10-0 is very fine. A 5-0, a 2-0, a 1 and a 2. That's what I'm using at the moment. But they're in series 55. But the number 1 that I'm using is a little bit fatter. And that's actually a rigger, a daily rounding one. The other ones are the Art Master Pearls. These are only a couple of pounds each, these. But it's best to look. You can do it with 3. You want a fat one, a medium one, and a fine one. And that will then give you the big spaces and the little spaces. Because the bigger the area, the bigger brush you want. Because you want it damp, but you want a lot more. Because you need to go further. Whereas for smaller areas, then you don't need a bigger brush. So let's have a look at one of these. Again, this is just a practice. We could do a red one. I mean, you can use professional watercolours. It works exactly the same. You can use whatever colours you want. The trick is to have a rigger. I would think this blue would be nice. So again, now this is damp, so it may not work because it's damp. So I'll do this one here because I've used a damp watercolour, and you don't tend to have as much control. It's a more denser colour. It's worked a little bit, but it doesn't work as well as with the dry pigment. So again, you start, and every time you wash your pot out, your brush out, it's completely clear, so you're not wasting any colour, because what you're doing is you're having a little bit of colour on the end and a damp brush. It works very much like a water brush, but water brushes are far too wet for this. So you're just having a touch of colour on the end, and then you're just pushing this through. Now this may work slightly better because I didn't put as much on, so I thought I would get a paler highlight. And just push the colour, and it's always a good idea to get comfortable because you need to keep going. If you stop, you won't get a natural blend. You'll get a line. And it doesn't always work. I'm actually going to go with the biggest rigger. In fact, I think I'm going to actually go with the really big ones. I think, let me have a look, I might go with these 3. I normally use them in 3s because normally I can afford to buy them in 3s. So I've got Pro Art 103 England. number 6, a number 5 and a number 3. But when you wet them, twist them to a point, they become quite thin. So going back to this number 2 Art Master, the thickness is the same as a number 3. So it's just best to have a look, and you want a fatter one, a thinner one. That's probably a better way of looking at them. So we'll try the smallest one of that one, because I want to get a nice space. In fact, I'm actually just going to go back and finish that one off with the brush I used, otherwise it will be odd. So again, a damp brush, touch of colour, and then just manipulate that up. And it's very fast, very fast, and you've got your colour. Don't know if I like that one or not. I'll try this one. Again, just a touch of colour. Might be a little bit much there, but and we're teasing that colour across. Yes, Suzanne. Thank you, Suzanne. Again, this is another different way of working than I've done before. So I didn't concentrate then, and it didn't work out. So I think I like the other brush. So they are a little bit big unless I get a bigger area. So I'm going to put those 3 back, and I'm going to be working with these Art Masters, and 1 graduate, number 1 rigger. That seems to be the nicest one. It's got the perfect amount of dampness, and it's a big enough area. So these are normally greens and reds, so we'll just pick a red. No, I'm going to do this one because I've just had an idea for that one. And this was a bauble that my daughter wanted as well, so it's gorgeous colours. So I found about 6 lots of air drying clay, so I thought I might use that. So again, I get quite a nice little highlight on that one. I'm using the dry bit rather than the wet bit, because again, that gives you the best highlight. If it's too wet, you don't get that lovely highlight. And this came about because of my little watercolour book. Again, if you feel it's a bit damp, you can just nip it, and all you're doing is taking out that water, so it's just not going to run. It's going to wait for you to push it about. So you can push it that way if you want, or you can stroke across. If I turn that upside down, that'll make me really sick, and work the other way, so these are the Dr. Martens Hydrus watercolours. And again, just a touch of colour. Now, if I'd have done that very pale, it would have looked like it was upside down. It would have been right, but I put too much colour in that one. but it's okay. I can make a very pale highlight at this side. And that will make sure that the light is going to be hitting it here. So when I turn that the right way around, that naturally looks like the light's hitting that side. If you did that with all of them, they would all look equal. So I was going to do something with this one. Let me just see how red this one is. That's what I was going to do. I'm going to take the smallest brush, the 10-0. I'm going to take a tiny touch of the red. You can just maybe see a little bit of red on there. Oh, hi Book Nester, welcome to Bunny's Designs. Hope everybody's well. Anybody else I've missed? I've been rather naughty and bought the Johanna's Christmas, so I'm having a practice because I fell in love with my Dr. Martens hydrus in a completely different way. So I thought, I've got to buy this Christmas book. Had to. So I'm using my little small riggers from my series Art Master Pearls, series 55, and there is one graduate Downy rigger number 1, but I class all those as riggers because they're all long. I'm using mainly dry, or a very tiny amount of the Dr. Martens Dr. P.H. Martens hydrus. These are fine art watercolours. They are professional watercolours and they are light fast. Now there's another section which are inks, and there's another set which are concentrates, but they're not professional watercolours and they're not light fast. So it depends what you want. They come in 3 sets, series 1, 2 and 3. I think there's series 1, and then I've got 1 or 2 others in there as well. So I wanted my 10-0. And I've got my trusted baby wipe and my water so my pen can get into there, twist to a point. So that's a damp brush. It's not wet, it's just damp. This only works if it's damp. So I'm just going to touch a tiny amount of red there. And then hopefully, if I tease this colour out here, I'm going to have a natural highlight. Now it wasn't quite in too much colour, so again, tiniest amount of colour, and tease that out for a natural highlight. Oh, thank you, thank you. So if I zoom in a smidgen more, because this is really tiny work, this. And I could move, sorry, 2 seconds. If I move that to there, and we'll just put, oopsie, I'll just put sooty. Just put sooty there. Just give maybe a little bit. That's better. So the tiniest amount of dry colour on a damp brush, and this number 10 is splitting at the end. Can't have any rogue hairs. And again, a little bit of colour and just tease it up to give a natural highlight. And you have to go back every time. I'm just going to put that into there because there wouldn't be a natural highlight. Now that might be a little bit too dark, but that's fine. And there's no reason why you can't actually look at your bauble. Oh, hi Kangaroo Babe, welcome to Bunny's Designs. Anybody else that I've missed? So I'm going to turn that upside down because I want to get, but this is just a practice. This is just a practice because I haven't decided how I want to tackle this yet. Probably do all different, but I just wanted to have a bit of a play with these baubles and this. I thought this would make some really lovely highlights on the baubles, this way of working. I'm going to swap to a slightly bigger brush. I'm going to use the 50 because it doesn't have any damage. The 10s, I use them quite a lot, so they tend to kind of lose that lovely point. But I've just got the tiniest amount of colour, and you've got to be fairly comfortable with this. Get in a comfy position, and then you can just, whoopsie, it is quite of a small space. So as I haven't quite decided how to play this yet. And then I want a really nice green, and again if you turn it round, it's very similar to when you're working with the wonderful chameleon pens. You know, you need to you do a natural blend, so you need to keep your brush into a natural sweep, because once you start you can't stop. So again, I've used a slightly bigger brush because it's a bigger area, so I've started here, and if I keep going very carefully, I should have a very nice natural highlight in a minute. So I have actually a nice one going around the corner. So if we have a bigger bauble here, I'm just going to get rid of this paper. Sorry about the crinkling, that was all my paper from yesterday. So I can actually turn to get to be a really nice and again I've got a lot of colours to play with. I don't have to stick to traditional colours, although I think I like the green and red, so I'm going to go with the green and see if I can get, should have had a bigger brush really. Yeah, I definitely should have had a bigger brush for that. But I've got the colour on here, so I'm just going to pick a bauble. I think I'm going to do this one green underneath. I'm trying to think of the old-fashioned ones. So I'm going to pick this one green underneath. So I've got my damp brush. Just tease that colour up. And I can probably do the end one, because it's going to be very pale, this one. So you don't have to do it like this if you don't want to. You can do the other way of working with the wet brushes and just play with the colour. It's a lot quicker. Again, you want to be fairly comfortable so you don't go over the lines. just want the tiniest amount to tease up there to give me a really natural little highlight. And then I'm going to turn that one round, and I'm going to pick I think I'll pick this one next. But I think that's the pink I used, but we'll have a look. Where's the green one gone? It's there. And we'll start in the middle and just work our way down. Now this is probably the cherry red that we all like for Christmas. And I'm just going to take, because that's the palest one, I'm just going to take this down here. And it's a bit faster way of working this. It is, and as I say, I quite like it. It's slightly faster than before, but I'm just going to put a little bit less colour on here so that I can have a really nice pale highlight across here. Perhaps that's just a bit too pale, that one. So really quick, because we want it rich and dark at the top, and then we just want that lovely pink tint at the bottom. So that's given a really lovely highlight, which you see on Christmas baubles sometimes. So again, you want quite rich at the top. This brush is a little bit wetter than I normally do, but having said that, this paper can take that, so that's okay. And then another bit of colour here. Now, if I do these two, again, just a little bit of that there, that will tease that colour around. So when we turn, and if we turn this upside down, if we use the tiniest brush, which is the 10-0, and we touch that colour, we've got the really rich colour down here. But what happens is you get a natural highlight right on the top. Well, I only do it because this is like, if anybody's ever worked with the chameleon pens, you blending like this, and this is very much blending, you're doing it backwards. So I've got strong colour on the end, and that water is, that damp brush is very carefully diluting it, so you get a lovely blended effect without the mess. And what happens is, I just caught colour under there, so to be a bit careful with that. And that's very similar to working that way. But if you're going like this, you couldn't do that. You couldn't get the. You've got to be comfortable, and you've got to work in a natural curve of your wrist. Otherwise, you can't really do this way of working. It becomes too uncomfortable. And it's with drawing with anything. If you're trying to draw a straight line, you know, don't go over yourself. I've got, for some reason, I've managed to get some paint everywhere. on the cover, and I've also got it on there as well, so I don't know how I've done that. So that's going to smudge into colour now. But that was a practice. That was just a practice to see the colours, see what they look like. Now I have a lot of colour on the end of that one, do I? I thought I had colour on some of them. Just that one. So I do have some pink here. So I'm going to just take this pink and see if we can move this up here. Now it's been sat a while, but I didn't want to get rid of it. But these are fab colours. And there's a lot of watercolours, a tight Yorkshire Lass. I'm just going to do this a different way, this one. I'm just going to colour this one in. Because the other way of working, that you did the Animorphia in the video yesterday, is a lot quicker way of working. And you can go back in and work it if you want to. So I'm going to go back into this paintbrush I used yesterday when I did the Animorphia, because that was a really nice quick way of working. So we'll pick this one, and we'll do it in the same colours and see if we can do it in the same way. So we had the orangey red in there, didn't we? And how I did it that way is I started at one side and then went across. So that gave me the natural highlight that way. Whoopsie. Across. Hi Julie, welcome to Bunny's Designs. Anybody else I've missed? So again, a touch of that. This is a different way of working, but I quite liked it. So again, I'm going to start working the darker colour here, and then everyone's going to get paler. And I did this in the undersea one yesterday. And that gives you a very subtle highlight, but it's very quick. It's a lot quicker than the other way. And again, this one working across here. So if you were doing a firelit Christmas baubles, your highlight would go across like that. And then you can always go over and darken that up a little bit if you want to. Or we can get some quite rich colour in here. If you wanted to. If you didn't want the highlight effect, well, we are getting a natural highlight effect on that one. So that's quite nice. I might actually deepen those reds up a bit, I think. Maybe give that some really nice rich. Now this brush is a lot wetter, so it's a lot quicker way of working. And we can just put a little, oopsie. So that's changed a different way of working, but I think I like this way. And it also protects your page so it's not too wet. So I'll just zoom out a little bit. So those are the practice ones we've done. just need to move it up slightly so I can see that. So that was the practice page. I'll just do some more with the fast way I worked on the Imagimorphia, because that looked quite nice, that did. So we've got the teal. So I mixed the green to get a tealy colour. I don't know what's happened to the green. Oh, it's there. Again, you need a fairly dry brush. Get as much off as possible. And again, be comfortable. So you want some nice, comfy sweeping motions. Now this is how I did the bird in the Animorphia. It's a lot quicker, it's a lot more vibrant, but with every bauble shape that I colour, the colour gets slightly lighter, so you get a different effect. So if I'm underneath, that one is going to be lighter than the next one. So this is just using neat, wet colour, and it's completely different. Again, you can't put too much colour, even though it's liquid. You don't need any water, because it's a liquid watercolour. But again, that can be quite a nice way of working. I'm just going to probably do one of these to tease some of this colour out. So you've got to decide what effect you want. Do you want the vibrant flat colours, or do you like the watercolour effect? Now the watercolour effect is not going to happen overnight. You probably want to photocopy it and have a play, because it takes its time. It's not an easy thing to learn. But as long as you have a damp brush, you should be fine. I'm going to put that colour. It's all gone now. Yeah, it's almost gone. I've just washed the brush out in there. It's the tiniest amount, but not much. So this is a very fast way of working, but you don't get your highlights. So you have to decide what you like to work with. I think I prefer to work in this book. I did buy it to use it as a watercolour effect, so I'm going back to the Riggers. I found that rogue colour that I managed to get everywhere. Just wanted put a piece of paper on this. So I'll have to leave it there because I've managed to get a rogue piece. So I'm going to try and put a highlight on this one. And we'll have, and again, if I wanted to, I could go back to here and I could think, what colour looks nice with the teals, the greens and you can sometimes think, oh well, actually, which red do I want? Or so I like the greens actually. So I'm actually going to put that green, which is a phthalo green. Now it's mixed in with the others, so I'm going to put some more out. But you only need the tiniest drop. And then you want, with a damp brush, you need even less. So I'm going to sweep across. And there's such a lot of colour on here because this is the difference between touching a wet amount of watercolour and touching the dried. So you're going to have to put them out the day before, a couple of days before, if you want them dried. But what that will give you if you carry on, look, you can do it with wet. That will give you quite a nice highlight effect. So we take that one up there, that's going to have the highlight on the top. I mean, it's not going to match because of this, unless it was matte. You see, this could be matte, and then it would match. And then we need another drop coming the other way, upward, with a damp brush. And because this is a big, long rigger, I should have probably put the tiniest amount more on there. There should be a really nice highlight coming from there now. And you want just enough to kind of, oopsie, tease that highlight out. So there's a really lovely bauble effect on that. So I might carry on actually and have a bit of a play. So this is quite a big rigger, so I need a bigger rigger for going around these baubles. And then the little ones, but I wanted to start to play with the colours actually, that's what I really wanted to do. So this is it's a bit too damp, is that? So again, you can nip it and just take a bit of dampness out, but not touch the end because that's where the colour is. So I'm going to do this one because it's quite a big one here. So we can have a big sweep of blue. Now perhaps I should have left the water in there because we would have had a really nice highlight. Again, turn that round to there, so I've got a natural sweep, a damp brush, a touch of the and the blue, and then once you get that first initial dark colour, you can then take this where you want it. And then she came in from the other direction. And again, that brush is just that little bit too damp. And just tease that in there so that highlight is naturally in the middle. Just a touch on that. So that's given quite a nice little bauble effect. And if we pick this one, we could have green. And give that a bit of a natural effect as well. Maybe a bit deeper colour would be nicer on that one. And I've split that one, so it's not going to work as well. I'll go back to this one. You get to decide which brush you like best for what areas. I always tend to go back to the 10-0 if it's a fine space, because it just gives a really natural highlight. But the 10-0 would be far too small for that. So again, that's why I'm doing the practice page, so I can have a bit of a practice of which size for what area. And I mean, I make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. That's why we do a practice first. And I just can't. I've got a little bit of a natural highlight on there. So this one, again, I've got a little bit of a kink on the end of this brush because I've used it quite a lot now. It gets that little tail at the end, but use that to your advantage. Always make sure that that's across, and because this is a made up green, what's happening is it's picking up, there's two different greens there. One side of it's a teal colour, and the other one is a natural green. So there won't be a highlight on that because it was too wet. So if I keep going here, this should go to almost no green whatsoever, unless I touch it again. Maybe I should have done that a different colour. I can put a touch of blue in that now. Now, really shouldn't work wet on wet, not in this book. But this is a practice page, so I can get away with it. It's not brilliant, but I quite like the colours. Again, you know, playing with the colours. So this is the practice page. So it's a little bit thicker card. So yes, thank you. They are working a little bit, aren't they? They're working a little bit. And again, I'm using completely different colours. So I'm going to use a different pinky red this time, this one. And start here and work up. So I don't know if it's better. Now this is a little bit wet, this brush now. So I've just got to keep going to give me that natural highlight. But I did get a natural highlight, so you know, that's fine. So welcome to Bunny's Designs. This is a live stream with my naughty but nice purchase, Christmas purchase. But I was just so wanted to do the Christmas baubles and the Christmas things because my daughter found this for her colour scheme, which I thought was fab. So I'm actually going to mix those colours with the hydrus to use on one of the pages, but I shall do that on another video. This is just a practice. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you. So I've got pink going down that way, so I'm going to turn that over to get the natural highlight going back over. And I wish I could show you what I was doing, but I've managed to get paint all over here. So the other thing is these are so vibrant, these colours. You just got to be a bit careful. So this is the top now here. And the problem I have now is the camera's in the way. But if we take this down here, just got a little touch of pink there. I forgot I've done it now. There. And it's dry. That's how damp you want to be. So, what colour do we want with those? We could do purple. I'll turn that over because we can have the highlight coming down, I think would be nice. This might be a little, that's a bit big. We need the very, very tiny brush for this one. Having said that, I'm just going to use it there because it's on the brush and it's pale. So I quite like that one. Try that again. I think that brush is just slightly damp. You can tell as soon as you start, when you've practiced the whole page, you will get the hang of what works and how much paint you need at the end. You can tell instantly if it's going to work or if you've got too much or too little. So I'm going in here darker because I think that would be the proper colour, and then I shall tease that up there. And again, the wonderful thing about baubles is you can just make your own colours up. But and then when you turn that way, you've got your natural highlights on there. So this brush is working quite well. This is the Dana Rowell #1 rigger because some of these spaces are quite big. So I might go in there with that teal colour that I made and tease that up there. And it's very pale, so I'm just going to take that up there because this is a natural highlight. Just put some more colour in it. So if anybody's got any questions. Yes. I have been known to have some of those. Everybody's frightened of me. I don't know why. I have no idea why everybody's frightened of me. So I'll try this cobalt blue, and this one I'm going to actually just go right across. And I think I probably need a bigger brush for this one, but it's a practice. I have to hold that down now. But I thought this cobalt blue would be quite lovely. And again, because it's Christmas baubles, you can be as vibrant as you want. This is probably the wrong one for here, but because you're going to get the lines to it, and we don't really want the lines to it. But and again, this is card, so it's taking that bit more water. See, that brush does not like that. It's just not big enough for that area. So you want a touch of colour on there. And I quite like that highlight, so we'll take this one across. We'll take that one across, just a smidgen of colour, just to take it to almost nothing. It's a bit blurred. So you do need to play with the size of the brushes. It's important. Too big and it doesn't wet. It's too wet, too dry, and you get the lines. So this is why best thing to do is a photocopy, because this is card. But if you do it on a photocopy paper and you don't go through, or you're laughing. So I'm going to go to these smaller brushes now. So I've quite enjoyed that. I've got some nice highlights. I like the highlighty bit, especially because the Christmas baubles, of course, they lend themselves to be all sparkly and highlights and sparkles in them. So there could almost be a light here. So I like that. Having said that, I like the idea of some of these being quite bright as well. So I'm going to stop the video there. Has anybody got any questions? I'll pop it on automatics, and then I'll hold them up and you can see how they look. And that's the difference between the two baubles. That was the wet way I worked with the Animorphia. This is my watercolouring way. So there's two different variations you can get. And there was the very pale pink one and the green one. I think the green one was the first one I did. So I hope you found that interesting. I'm just going to bring back the city and the colours so we can have the best of both worlds. I think, oopsie, I think that's the best we're going to get. So I hope you've enjoyed that. So this is part one of Johanna's Christmas, and we've had a practice with the Dr. Martens hydrus colours. Thank you for watching.